Today, we have a more depressing video. I'm Aiden, and welcome to A Pastor's Life for Me. So several months ago, one of my favorite artists, musicians, released a new album, and one song on it really hit the heart. It's a song on abortion. And as always, it's a difficult and touchy subject. And frankly, it's a subject that we often don't want to talk about. It gets at us. We mourn over the whole thing. We get angry over it. Sometimes we'd rather just avoid it. The song is Plan For Me, and it's by Manafest. It takes what I see as a unique perspective that we really don't see very often. So before we get into this, click the link or in the description and watch the original video of this, because we're going to be pausing the song quite often, and you really need to hear the song in its entirety.
Dear son or daughter, I know we never met. I never saw your first breath or take your first step. I was so young, me and your mom, we got along, but we just weren't ready. Regrets, there's been many. Heavy on my shoulders, you'll be 5 this October, but it just gets colder every year. I don't know you. We picked out names, but we were so afraid. My heart still aches, I do whatever it takes.
Already into the song. This first verse is based on the perspective of somebody who aborted their child and regretted it later. With that constant guilt that they have in their hearts over the decision that they made, primarily out of fear. The one line, it gets colder every year, I don't know you. We picked out names, but we were so afraid. Now this is one perspective that I can sort of sympathize with. The outcome shouldn't have happened, and it's positioned based on fear. You'll get people who are afraid they can't take care of the child. And people say, well, if you can't take care of the child, it's better that they don't live than to live in poverty. Horrible justification for it. But I'm thinking more on the lines of a teenager, young adult who's gotten pregnant and is in a situation where they're just afraid of it all. They're afraid of having a baby, but more so, they're afraid on the impact that it'll have generally on their parents. I've known people who have been in situations like this. And you're faced with a dilemma. Tell your parents, who will probably be very angry, very upset, very hurt, very disappointed, and in some cases, just might abandon you in a way. And you're faced with this pressure where there's this immense hurt from this side, even though you haven't told them, there's still this immense hurt and this immense fear, or this temptation from the option where you can just make it all go away. We don't have to ever tell mom and dad this happened. Sure, maybe I'll feel guilty about it for a little while, but the guilt goes away, they say. And you're in this conflict. There's this great conflict in your being where it's like, what do I do? Because both are just horrible options. And I can sympathize with that. I had my rebellious periods, and to have that fear that maybe mom and dad are going to find out. What are they going to do? They are going to kill me. There's fear from that. Another fear that seems to be somewhat mainstream, gets talked about quite often, is the pressure the father puts on the mother. And the fear that the mother faces from that. Am I going to raise this child alone? Is my boyfriend going to leave me? What do I do? I would guess the majority of the abortions that take place happen out of fear. And it's sad. It's heartbreaking because our society, our culture makes it so easy. And even laws that are in debate, laws that have been passed, things that say, well, you don't need to tell their parent about any of this. That teenagers can have it done in secret. And so this first verse, it takes the perspective from somebody who's afraid, from somebody who has inner turmoil about this. And in the end, they made the wrong decision. I remember an Adventures in Odyssey episode. I think it only aired once or twice before it was put in the Lost episodes, as they're called. It's called Pamela Has a Problem. And it's about a teenager who makes a mistake, gets pregnant, and is now struggling with this. Do I keep the baby and potentially have my parents hate me for the rest of my life? The fear that goes on in your head. Or do I just make it all go away. I felt that the show took a very good perspective on this. Again, basing off of that fear is often the driving force of this. I've heard many people say the regret goes away. I've also heard from many people that it never goes away. And when the reality of the thing that you just did could be far in the future, but when that reality hits you, it crushes you. And the rest of this verse, it describes that. It's like he's pleading with God that this decision could be undone, but knowing full well that it can't.
So if I could go back in time and make a change, I would. If I could bring you back to life, erase the pain, I would. If I could pray you back tonight with no delay, I would. I'll meet you up in heaven, back together for good.
The last line in the verse, it brings up a topic I'd really rather not touch on, but I'm going to. I'll meet you up in heaven, back together for good. It raises this difficult question to answer, both because the Bible doesn't touch on it much, but also because of the great pain that people go through with not knowing. And the question is, what happens to the babies that are aborted? What happens to children who die when they're too young to even do anything? And the Bible doesn't really say much on it, except for one passage. When David committed his great sin with Bathsheba and murdering her husband, the prophet Nathan comes to David and confronts him with it. And David repents, but he's told that his newborn son is going to die. And David, he mourns over this news, and he fasts and he prays, but in the end the child dies. And when David is told that his son is dead, he gets up off the ground. He goes into the house of the Lord and he worships. And when he's asked about this, he says, "While the child was still alive, I fasted and wept. For I said, who knows if the Lord will be gracious unto me and will let the child live? But now he is dead. Why should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he will not return to me." This is all the Bible really says about it. We're not going to get deep into this, but there's a belief called the age of accountability. And it's basically that until somebody is at the age where they can be accountable to their sin is not held against them. The problem is, the Bible doesn't say anything about it. And the other problem is, well, then what age does it start at? When does it start? Some people will say, well, in the toddler years, late child. If you're the most recent Left Behind movie, you say 18. But the Bible doesn't speak about it. And if I were to say why, if the Bible taught the age of accountability, the most gracious thing that you could do for somebody is to kill them before that age. But the Bible doesn't speak about it. I have my views on it, but what we do know, but what the Bible does speak about, is that every child is created by the hand of God. That every child is intricately designed by God. Our last video, we talked about that. Let's carry on to verse 2. Verse 2 is from the aborted child's perspective.
Mom and Dad, I understand, but I wish I had the chance. I'll never feel the touch of hands or ever walk across the sand. I know I wasn't planned, but if you saw the way I dance, I would've let it bend, but I'll never know romance.
Mom and Dad, I understand, but I wish I had the chance. I don't know how you would be able to picture this perspective and for it not to break your heart. For an unborn child to say, I wish I had the chance to touch your hand, to walk across the sand, to feel loved, to be held in your open arms.
If born, I would've changed the world. If born, I'd been your baby girl. If born, you would've seen me twirl brown eyes and golden curls. And guess what? I still love you. Let it go.
If born, I would have changed the world. If born, I would have been your baby girl. If born you would have seen me twirl. Just picturing this. I don't understand it. You see the clips in the video of kids running around, blowing the dandelions, playing. A child that could have been. It's a very, very deep perspective. It's asking the question, would you have aborted your child if you could see them? If you could have seen your child twirl, playing at the park, laughing, having fun. If you could have seen your child, you probably wouldn't have done it. Statistically, I believe abortions would go down to basically none. Just about none. And some proof for this is there are some pro-life organizations that will set up a free ultrasound just outside of abortion clinics. There's quite a few Christian organizations who will do this. And the vast majority, they say, of women who get the ultrasound and see the baby do not get it aborted that day. They can't keep tally with everybody later, but that day, they save the child's life. This one line gets me. Brings up a memory of something I saw. The line, if born I would have changed the world. It's a question between a man and God. And the man is accusing God and saying, why didn't you bring somebody to cure cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, dementia, all these terrible diseases that plague us, all this great suffering? God, why wouldn't you have made somebody who could cure these things? And God replies, I did. You aborted them. Now don't read too much into this analogy, but it shows a great point. There are people who blame God left and right for things that happen in their lives. Why would God let me go through this suffering? And yet, what does our culture display but a mass amount of ungodliness every day? I don't want to do this. I really don't want to do this. During my time at Bible college, one of our mandatory classes was on Christian ethics. And we get to choose our topic for a major paper. And I wrote a paper on why abortion is wrong, primarily based outside of the Bible. And I wanted to do it that way because you go up to an atheist or an agnostic and you say, abortion is wrong, God says so. And they're just going to laugh at you. But part of my research was looking into some of these numbers and statistics. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. I wrote this paper just under 3 years ago. I'm from Canada. As of the time of writing this paper, Canada had aborted 4 million children, which is about 1% of its current population. The United States was just under 52 million, which is about 0.15% of their current population. And over the past 40 years, it's estimated that 1.72 billion children have been aborted. About a seventh of the current population, about 14%. I wrote, they estimate that there are 40 to 50 million abortions globally every year. And that corresponds to 125,000 a day, 5,208.3 an hour, 86.8 a minute, and 1.45 a second. Wake up. This is, as Ray Comfort says, the great modern day Holocaust. I pray that in 100 years, 50 years, hopefully even less, they look back on our culture with disgust. There's a site that has an ongoing counter. It's an issue that we somewhat want to hide from. I don't really want to see, but I think it's important because it needs to get us tomorrow. And we need to have a godly anger about it. It is January 21st, 2020, and 2.5 million babies have already been aborted. This was by far the most difficult paper that I have ever written. I remember looking back on it many times while writing it. I just had to take a step back and just sit. And again and again and again. And each time, I was speechless. Paul tells us in Romans that the Spirit intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words. This is one of those times where I don't know what to say. I don't know what to pray. Words are not deep enough to cut through this. But I know that when I don't know what to say, the Spirit intercedes for me with these groanings too deep for words. Let's carry on with the bridge.
Mom and Dad, I know it hurts right now, but don't let the past shape your future. You've got your whole life ahead of you. God's already forgiven you. If you can just find the strength now and forgive yourself, I love you, and I'll see you up here soon.
Even with everything that we have done, killing the ones who cannot defend themselves, we've done it in masses. And yet, even in that, Jesus says, I will forgive you. I think the only thing more baffling is that God is still willing to forgive. And he does. I've talked with people who have gotten abortions and then come to Christ, who that's their ministry. Don't make the same mistake I did. Don't live your life with the regrets that I did for my decision. But even if you did, there is forgiveness in Jesus' name. God's grace, it's astonishing. And again, I don't have words to describe it. I don't know what you've done, the sins that you've made, the regrets that you have. I don't know them. But what I do know is that I worship a God who is gracious enough to forgive us when we sin, if we only trust in him. No child is unplanned. No child is an accident. No child just pops into being, because we are told in the Word of God that each and every one of us are intricately, delicately formed by the hands of God. All of us. Every single one. And he knows us to the core of our beings. No child is unplanned. It isn't just some game of numbers and odds, a game of chance that an egg gets fertilized and grows into a child. It is designed by God. And each time it happens because the hand of God put someone he designed. He placed that person in the womb for a reason. No child is unplanned because every child is in God's plan. And that's what the course goes into. I was never unplanned. I never left your hand. I never left your plan. I was never unplanned.
Mom and Dad, I know it hurts right now, but don't let the past shape your future. You've got your whole life ahead of you. God's already forgiven you. If you can just find the strength now and forgive yourself, I love you, and I'll see you up here soon.
I was never unplanned. It was not your plan for me. I was never unplanned. I'm right where I'm supposed to be. I was never unplanned. I never left your hands, never left your plan. Was never unplanned. I never left your hands.
You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You never know, dear, how much I love you. So please don't take my sunshine away.
For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. plans to give you a hope and a future. No one's unplanned. Nobody's unplanned. And again, even now, I don't know what to say. It's a beautiful song, and it's by far not just the favorite song by him, but it's probably in my top 3 songs ever. It draws you in, and it makes you think, and it can quite easily make you depressed. But more than that, it should make you turn to God, because he grieves over this too. Something else that I really like about this song, Manafest, he's the guy that you hear through the song. He's the artist, but it's his wife singing the chorus. I believe his daughter sings the last part, "You are my sunshine." And that last part, I hear it, and practically every time it makes me smile for joy, but at the same time, it breaks me. I have 2 children, 4 and 3, and they have so much joy. They dance, they sing, they run around, they're laughing constantly. And as a parent, it brings so much joy to see your children like that. And to think the billions of children that have been aborted who will not have a childhood to do that. It grieves you. And it should. Take a stand. No child is unplanned. And every child should be born. And I want to challenge you. Share this video and share this song. Post it on the social media that you're on. Personally share it with people you know. We don't talk about abortion enough because, as I said, we kind of want to hide from it. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and I do hope that you share it with your friends. I don't know what else to say. So remember, as always, to know the word, do the word, and share the word. But we always do it in love. Especially when it's an issue like this, where so many people can have such pain. Share the word with them. Share it in love.